Welcome to Life is for Living. I'm your host, Kylie Buckley, and I'm here with David J. Riddell from the School of Living Wisdom. Now, today, David wants to speak on arrested development. What's that, David?
Such a fascinating title, Arrested Development. And I'm going to use a little story from my own life to introduce it. When I was a child, arithmetic and maths was not my strong point, and I really struggled with some additions and some multiplications and so forth. Until the day I discovered during homework that actually all the answers were in the back of the book, and all I had to do was look them up and fill it in. And I got on well with fractions then, had it all sussed. The answers went in and I got 10 out of 10 again and again, until my teacher thought, hello, something's up here. He said, David, I believe you've been cheating. And my problem with that is that if you cheat, you'll never develop your maths muscle. You'll get all the answers right, but you won't know how you did it. And one day the answers won't be in the back of the book. And then you're going to fall over because you're as weak as a kitten in arithmetic. You've arrested in your development. And I think of that every time I'm working with somebody who's got a rage problem, an anger problem, a sarcastic problem, a gaslighting, mind game problem. Because what's happened is that as a child, they've stumbled on a way of getting what they want, the easy way. And that includes stealing or lying. And so this has worked so effectively for them, this tantrum throwing all their toys out of a cot. It's worked so well to get them what they want that they haven't seen any need to learn to negotiate, to learn to be assertive, to learn to say what they want, even to use their words. And so as a result, they've gone into what I think of as arrested development. And here's the interesting thing. Years later in psychotherapy and in counselling, when I finally take that survival kit off them, that survival kit of promiscuity, sexual addiction, same-sex attraction and addiction, frigidity, alcohol, drug, marijuana, you name it. When I finally lift that survival kit, that defense mechanism off of them, what I find is that even though they're a mature adult, underneath that defense mechanism that they've resorted to as a child, do you know what, Kylie? They're still the same emotional age they were when they reached for it and it worked.
Oh,
And so the escape artist is still escaping. The sexual addict is still serially unfaithful. The alcoholic is still reaching for alcohol to dull the pain or make it go away. And the problem is that they've never actually learned to cope with the difficulties of life, the grief, the guilt, the despair, because they never had to. They always had this rubber dummy, this quick fix, this soft option, false comforter to go for. So they haven't needed to learn to be assertive. They haven't needed to learn to say no or to negotiate or to counter proposition. They haven't found any truth or truth coach reassurances to apply to their bruises to heal them. They've never learned to call a meeting or have a courageous conversation or even to negotiate. So they basically function as adults without any adult skills. And so that's why I call it arrested development. And you'll always find it under a habit or an addiction. You'll always find it underneath a survival kit of some sort.
mm-hmm.
Now, there are hundreds of survival kits, faulty adjustments to life, psychologists call them. But underneath all those faulty adjustments to life, you'll find the same thing, arrested development. This is the Tinkerbell of the psychological world. This is the Peter Pan of the emotional therapeutic world. And Peter Pan, who never grew up, never grew old, is still trying to cope by partying, by relating to people through sexuality, or not relating to people through pornography. And that 12-year-old survival kit is still being reached for. Why? Because they don't have anything else. That development arrested years and years ago. And you cannot actually heal an addiction until you address the pain that the person is self-medicating for. You can get them to swap addictions, but you can't heal or stop the addictive nature until you've addressed that unbearable feeling, those emotional bruises that are causing them, after all these years, to keep on self-medicating. Because I know and they know that if I take that dysfunctional survival kit off of them, they're going to be a frightened child. They're going to be an angry child. They're going to be a despairing child all over again. And it won't stop. It'll just come over them like a flood. And that's what they're trying to keep one step ahead of. And I have to sadly report that in the resting home, my own mother was still chain smoking. And when I asked her, "Mother, what is the feeling that seeks to overwhelm you when you stop smoking?" her reply was immediate. She said, "Life is utterly pointless." And so she was in arrested development, she was using the nicotine to dull the searing pain of absolute futility. And I understood once again, not that I needed the reminder, that until people address that heartache, that unbearable feeling, that emotional bruise, they remain in arrested development, hiding underneath a layer of survival kits. And most people have got more than one or two. If they can't smoke, they'll drink. If they can't drink, they will vape. And if they can't vape, they'll eat. And if they can't eat, they'll go running, and they won't stop running until they've damaged themselves. We can swap addictions, we can trade addictions, but until the bruise is healed, we can't actually heal the addictive personality.
But how can they heal it if they feel it's too painful to address?
And that's why we've got to bring in those key reassurances before, not after, before we address the addiction. Because otherwise you take their addiction off them and they've got nowhere to hide. They've got nowhere to go.
What if they don't know if they can handle addressing it?
Oh, well, that's my job as a counsellor and as a coach to reassure them that between the two of us, we will know how to handle it. I would never try and take an addiction off a person until they had a strategy to fill the gap, fill the void, make up for the lost comfort, companionship, reassurance, or chemical drug that they're vulnerable to.
What if they don't really know what the issue is, or they feel they can't fix it? Because maybe
Well, that's my job as a counsellor and therapist. My job is to expose where the ache is coming from, and then apply a poultice of reassuring truth that undermines the legitimacy of that splinter in their souls.
Mm. So what you're saying is, from the time that this happened that caused such trauma to them, they haven't in that area been able to mature.
That's right. That's exactly right. And that area, they're still a child.
How long does it take for them to become an adult once they have worked on that area and exposed it and got the truth in there and been able to find healing?
Depends how fully persuaded they are that it really is the truth. Some people take years to give up an addiction because they're going on the drip feed system. the higher purchase of freedom from addiction, where the others pay cash up front. They're fully convinced this thing is only ever making their life worse. The binging, the drugging, the smoking, the drinking, the lies, the affairs, they're only ever making their life worse. And when they're fully persuaded of that and they have a replacement, the change can be miraculous. And I see it regularly in my 10-day course. I see people become almost unrecognizably renewed in their mind and in their spirit as soon as they give up on that quick fix and they come to truth to set them free. And that's what these 10-day Living Wisdom courses are all about.
Mm-hmm.
They're an intensive renewing the mind, transforming the life experience. And they never fail, the students that do take the lessons seriously. They always lead to changed lives.
Yes. And you look,
That's why we keep the numbers small. We've got live-in accommodation here for a dozen people and probably another dozen attending from around the city of Nelson and so forth. But that's what I've been doing now for 30 years. And as a result, I've seen a lot of people radically changed and having their lives radically improved.
beautiful. Yes, and I'm one of those.
Yes, you are. Absolutely.
Totally. But for me, I don't think I'm addicted to anything. But for me, I had a very sore. I carried shame, and when you brought that when you brought truth into it, it just broke it off me. But I was living out of that, and it was almost like I was punishing myself in a particular area because I had shame for something that didn't even belong to me. It had nothing to do with me.
Well,
But
my hope is that you're becoming newly addicted to truth, reassuring mental health and the truth of mental and emotional health.
absolutely, I am. And I'm also becoming addicted to speaking good of myself to myself. And
Yes.
and that means accomplishing what I want to accomplish. So that
And, be- and because you're in the faith, you're not trying to pull yourself up with your own bootstraps. You're not trying to claim 10 impossible things before breakfast like Alice in Wonderland. You're actually got grounds to claim that you are of great worth and value. And we know that from the promises and the words of Christ.
and all of us are of great value, every one of us. So yeah. Oh well, so arrested development, yeah, that is a big, big topic.
Yeah, interesting, isn't it?
I'm so pleased that you shared your knowledge with us today, David,
Thank you.
on that. Thanks, everyone. Bye now.
Bye bye.